Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. This is Steve Ferreira, CEO of Ocean Audit, host of OK Boomer Live, on an unscheduled OK Boomer edition, Friday, September 4th, before Labor Day. Wishing you all a great and really, really happy holiday. It's just a great crossing over period with school starting. We're taking our firstborn, who is 15, to boarding school this weekend. It's really, really exciting. It's scary. Alex, our son's going to Avon Old Farms in Avon, Connecticut. And even though we only live 35 minutes away, we decided to board him full time to kind of get the full experience of living with international students all around the world and, great American students as well. So it's going to be really exciting in the Ferreira household this weekend to take him there. And, again, I'm pleased to be here. I'm Steve Ferreira, CEO, your host of Ocean Audit and host of OK Boomer Live. I haven't been called the lapel pin guy for a while, but I have my trusty lapel pin on today. And today's thought was about, I started to think, like, what's a really key issue that's happened in the trade that's not really been talked about too much. Well, maybe it has. I know I haven't talked about it. So the whole issue with Damco, and such an interesting and almost somewhat tragic end to Damco with the consolidation within Maersk of Damco and South Marine, and I'm sure that it's going to mean a lot of different things for people in the Damco universe. But one of the reasons why I wanted to just kind of do this unscheduled LinkedIn Live is that I started to think, and sometimes the best moments I have is when I'm driving or having a coffee. And, I think, well, that's an interesting trend. Let me look at that. And the one thing I wanted to say about Damco, it's really interesting, is I wonder how much of this was already predetermined. That's because I did some running statistical analysis. And if you look at year-to-date 2019 versus year-to-date 2020, if you just look purely on the amount of house bills, meaning house invoices, that Damco issued in that time frame, in those two respective time frames, they issued about 20,300 in 2019 and only about 15,700 in 2020. So they actually had a drop of about 22% in a year where ocean freight has accelerated, and you would see native increases in that kind of volume. So it's not like they tanked, right? But I think that this says something about the internal mechanisms or the internal whisperings that they probably heard throughout the year. I'm talking about the folks at Damco. And, again, I won't get into my statistical analysis for like Flexport. Matter of fact, I won't even talk about the numbers. But the reason why I bring that up in the first place is that Damco went down 22%, but Flexport went up 145%. So it kind of rings true that I think the writing was on the wall, within the Damco Maersk organization on what would happen there. So, I start to think, well, what happens next? What's the best advice going forward for clients that use Damco? Well, I think that if you're just looking from an analytical perspective, at some point, the amount of people looking at the Damco organizational structure, revenue structure, customer service structure, dispute structure, refund structure, it's all going to shrink, right? It's all going to, get, reduced to the point where it's going to be difficult to undo something that needs to be undone. For example, a refund. So I started to think that probably the single best thing, and it's not an endorsement of what I do with my recovery auditing at all, but I think the single best thing that any beneficial cargo owner can do that uses Damco is to do a 3-year comprehensive post audit of their expenses with Damco. And it's important to do that now while there's still the right resources and teams in place to be able to issue you a refund check, to validate your overcharges, and so on and so forth. So I really think that this is a fantastic opportunity for Damco beneficial cargo owners to cash in on the potentially seven-figure plus refunds that they have coming to them. I'm talking about collectively, through the whole basket of Damco beneficial cargo owners and what Damco may owe clients that they've overbilled, through the years. I think that's one of the single most important things that can be done. And I think that one of the things that clients need to put in perspective is when they get that new money, right, that refund money, whether it be $10,000 or $100,000, what a fantastic opportunity to go to freight forwarder XYZ, staying neutral as I always do, and using some of the old Damco money from refunds to try out new vendors that are going to be there to service your needs in the way that you need to, based on your own unique idiosyncrasies and capabilities and organizational requirements. So I think that it's kind of a cascading effect, right, where you can take the refund money that you would get from Damco overcharges and then use them going forward collectively with to try new vendors out, even on a test basis. It's my humble opinion that if you use a given NVOCC or freight forwarder for 3 to 5 moves, I think that's a sufficient amount of time to understand whether or not that is the right vendor for you, right? It gives you a good measure and display kind of quotient in terms of saying, this service has been right or every shipment has been wrong. And I think you have the ability to, go forward and have a program to determine whether you want to put more volume, with that particular vendor. But having the refund money from the Damco strategy is a great way to try that. Now, if you're a competitor of Damco, this is, really, I think, the best, how shall I say, sales agency, I guess, that I could think of for getting clients' money back. I think if you're a competitor, you definitely want to milk that, right? You want to be able to go to that potential new client and say, hey, we're forwarder XYZ, and have you considered or looked at all the refunds or overcharges you might have had in the past? And so I think you would want to, as a NVOCC that competes with Damco, you would want to navigate new ways to engage that client. It might be a simple thing as, hey, with Damco, your data was in the public manifest system. I'll take it out from day one. And some CFOs would see more value in that than even, a low rate. It depends, who you're really servicing on that side of the equation with the client. So I think that the opportunities for a competing NVOCC, looking at going into taking or working with the clients that have used Damco, the iron is strike while the iron is hot, but at the same time, I think forward thinking strategically, you go in with a service differentiation, and you go in with a much stronger approach towards winning the hearts and minds of that client, right? Because you've come in with a innovative, really unique idea that's going to bring much needed cash to that customer's treasury, as opposed to kind of the old classic thing. Well, hey, Damco's kind of, possibly a thing of the past, and, go with us. That's just a horrible way to sell, and it's a horrible way to really kind of get any client pain point across in the right way. So I think that, you definitely want to, you want to plant that seed for sure as a competing NVOCC, a freight forwarder, that the customer has those options, right? And I think that the timing is superb because if you're going in and co-opting somebody in the finance silo and the logistics silo, or the shared service silo, you have the chance to now not only talk about what the next steps look like in, say, the Trans-Pacific or the transatlantic, but you also have the opportunity to differentiate in terms of what consultative type services that you, as the new NVO, can provide the beneficial cargo owner. I think that I see Richard. I really appreciate Richard Goon has come up with a comment that audits post-move are highly beneficial for every mode, and they definitely help your carriers. You have a degree of transport savvy. It's really fascinating, Richard, you talk about that, because I think one of the things that I see a lot with clients is that, and I'll be completely transparent. I'll go in and I look at the ocean audit world as an economic vehicle, right? Obviously, it's what I do full time. It's all I do. I get money. Client gets refund. I get the money. But I think that the way the client is looking at it, and what I sell, what I position Ocean Audit to solve as the pain point, is I say, okay, look, I'm the fourth set of eyes that are looking at these invoices. If it's really done effectively, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. You've had an internal audit, you've had maybe a freight pay, you've had a pre-audit, you maybe even have a post-audit. So there could be 3 to 4 people already examining those invoices. And then, little Ocean Audit comes around, with one employee, Steve Ferreira, and, gathers up 17 of the Fortune 100, because the thing is Ocean's really, really complex. And you as a logistics leader, or a finance leader, or a shared service leader, you need to take the lead in saying, hey, ocean freight is the most lucrative of all the recovery agents out there. And if you're a major market mover in ocean freight, 100, 200, 500 containers or more, there's always going to be something that gives you a bang for the buck. I think Richard's point is well taken. I did a study once that even somebody with 100 containers, that analyzes the overpayments that they have, they can pay for a year's worth of office supplies. So I think it really needs to be navigated in a way that you can explain and express to the company that you're pitching to, or presenting an idea to, that, ocean freight and costs are definitely tied in together, right? I think that we often forget about the cost and the cost overruns that occur in ocean freight. We don't think about it. We acknowledge that it might exist in telecom or utility, or God forbid, even tax with the IRS, right? I mean, I had an example where, I sent a estimated tax payment in, and it didn't hit my account, and I got a penalty, and, thank God the IRS found it and overrode it. So I think that measuring the economic impact that ocean freight has is probably the worst carryover in the industry, meaning that it's something the press doesn't cover. Sure, every 6 years or 5 years, they'll say, hey, trust your carriers, but audit, right? I mean, it's kind of the same old thing in the FedEx world or small parcel or UPS world. Parcel audits, all automated and computerized. It's almost blockchain-esque, but ocean freight is such a unique animal that you really have to look at each individual player, right, as its own kind of canvas, right? So, I mean, if I go into client X and then client Y, my approach is completely different based on, the organizational setup, who they use, what the nomenclature is, what the resources are, et cetera, et cetera. But if you go in and you uniformly look at this as an opportunity, i.e. the Damco audit, and you're a third-party logistics company, you may hit a home run, because you may be de facto the agent of change that brings that nuance to the CFO or to the controller that they're looking for, right? In a change agent. Very few times will it happen where a logistics leader might go and say to a CFO, hey, I think we should change auditors, right? Logistics job is very, very well versed, to move cargo in real time and get the velocity, the volatility, mitigated, on the ocean shipment. But as far as the recovery, we talked about this last week on OK Boomer Live. By the way, you're listening to Steve Ferreira, CEO of Ocean Audit, host of OK Boomer Live. You can call me the lapel pin guy, at least for today. And so I think that it's a slippery slope because, you got somebody that's really intrinsically engaged and wanting to save the money in a corporation. And then you have other challenging issues where there's quasi delineated, no time involved for, these kind of activities just because, of COVID-19. So I kind of get it. I mean, I see both sides of the fence, but, recovery of these kind of issues, recovery of funds, right? Whether it's telecom, ocean, small parcel, real estate, tax, what am I trying to say? I think sometimes, I was once told that, to be a freight auditor, all you need is a pickup truck and a laptop computer, because, you used to pick up these old banker's boxes of invoices. You scan them into a laptop. I can tell you those days are long past. I don't know about that, but I've never had a pickup truck. A Lincoln Navigator, and that's a different story, but not a pickup truck. And I think that when you look at today's environment for professionalism and navigation of cost recovery, savings, and tying it all together, more than ever, one thing is great that we have so many new, people coming into the industry with, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years experience. I think it's great. I'm just really stoked that that's happening. On the other hand, when they're in key positions in invoicing or, the managing the algorithms in a service contract, that's a really slippery slope, to have somebody in such power with such minimal industry experience. So I think that the beneficial cargo owner world really has to balance the fact that, and this is the reason why I do these OK Boomer Live episodes, is that ocean freight is so challenging. I say it all the time, that it's a hybrid between an art and a science. And I think that having the ability to, look at it intrinsically as not only a indirect area of spend, but also the potential to have it to be a mini cost recovery area is really, really exciting. I mean, look at me. I'm doing this on a Friday at 7:41 p.m. And I got great people like Richard watching this, and I could go on and on forever. I see Richard's made another comment. Let's put it on the screen. I love it. When the finance team and president see the credit or GSR check, they do backflips. I've been auditing parcel carriers for 20 years. Yeah, I think that one thing about what Richard said is that I'm trying to see if I can relate to it in a way. I mean, I've had a couple of clients. I had one client where I had a $4 million recovery, and it's like, oh, okay, Steve, that was great. So what's next? And it's like, they're so huge that the 4 million didn't necessarily register on the Richter scale. But I think, deep down, it's like, okay, yeah, I think we got a problem. So, yeah, I've seen it both ways. And I've seen other clients where, once I've gone through this process, the CFO has become my best buddy and basically has been a great testimonial towards, using, these type of services going forward. But I do think that, the Damco issue is really, really, really interesting because, I have a ton of respect for Maersk, and I've got a lot of great friends in Maersk around the world that are first class, caliber folks. And I think that the Maersk organization itself is maybe righting the ship in their own way, the way that they've moved the Damco and Saf Marine brands to the point where they are now. But I also do think that you got to have both sides of the equation, right? So I think that for a beneficial cargo owner that's using Damco, the best advice I have right now is to say, hey, make sure that you have everything accounted for properly, before it gets too sideways on you, right? So I think that's why I wanted to make the LinkedIn Live tonight, because I really want clients in the replay or customers that use Damco in the replay to see this and to say, hey, that's not such a bad idea. We've used Damco for 7 years, for 4 years, 5 years, 2 years. And, there's so much bandwidth out there that, Damco is in some ways, as I said, their volume is way down 2020 versus 2019. So they've got some great people that I trust and they're friends of mine. On the other hand, I think that there are NVOs out there that also are, looking at this video and saying, holy cow, I'm going to take a tutorage from, Steve's master class on this and try to make some activity on it. Because frankly speaking, the NVO that's just sitting pat and not looking at the Damco customer list right now, I'll bet there's, 20 COOs, chief commercial office, CCOs, chief commercial offices that are just, kind of salivating now saying, let me at it, right? Let me start to convert those people. And I think that by being able to offer the client a differentiation, rather than pushing them in from, hey, I'm not going to pick on an NVO, but NVO X. If NVO X goes to a Damco client and just tries to say, hey, we're here for you, and we have this consistency of sailing, and our guy is here, and you see us every week or every 2 weeks. Honestly, that's kind of BS, right? I think that what the clients need today they need a professional kind of briefcase solution, which is not necessarily a highbrow type solution or, something that's blockchain-esque, right? Where the client is just going to say, oh, wow, geez, well, Mr. NVO, that is really what I need. I need that blockchain. I need that great dashboard. I need that pretty, customer display. I think a lot of that's BS, right? I think that when you get into the client base that Damco has, I would say, in my humble opinion, it is kind of more of the mid-market client that Damco's gone after, so not necessarily, the A-level kind of, just roll off your tongue retailer. It's, Damco has great clients, but they go after, I think, the mid-market, mid-tier level, FEU, TEU type level client. And those are very, very attractive margins for many people. And I have one friend that I'm thinking of right now off the top of my head. He's a top guy at one of the NVOs. And he's probably already, been thinking 3 ways from Sunday how to attack or tackle, the issue of Damco. But I will tell you, though, in general, if you're listening out there, by navigating your way into Damco clients with refund recoveries and monetization of using invoice errors as a way in, it may be just the right medicine that the doctor has ordered. Because, when I presented to a group of internal auditors recently, to some very high-level executives, 20 or 30 of them in a room, in a Zoom room, they're looking under every rock for every last possible dollar. And I think that it is encouraging to see internal audit to start to get involved in logistics and sea freight and ocean freight overcharges, cost overruns. Traditionally, we've kind of had logistics, we've kind of had accounts payable, and in some ways, we've had a little bit of like shared services get involved. But as I said in my last couple LinkedIn Lives, the worst sin that an organization can make is to have the ocean freight invoices go directly to accounts payable for payment and kind of rubber stamping. Even having them go to logistics, approved, and then go to AP is still a real cardinal sin, right? Because, let's face it, logistics for the most part is kind of rubber stamping, every 2 out of 10, kind of eyeballing, making sure it falls into play. So that being said, the Damco recovery and a Damco strategy to gain inroads into new client acquisition by looking at Damco's customer list may not be quite enough. It is interesting to see the fact that they did, meaning Damco, take their foot off the pedal in terms of 2020 should have been, even though we had COVID, right, we're still finding the China volumes are quite strong. And if you look at the Flexport example of 145% increase from last year to this year, that's quite stunning. And my hats are off to Ryan Peterson and Sonny Mathers and that whole Flexport group. Whatever the naysayers would say about Flexport, the data doesn't lie. The data is very strong. And so, the Flexport, you look at the top 10 NVOCCs, and there's a lot of guys out there, right, that are really creative and can use this to take advantage of the situation. And I wouldn't doubt it for a minute that in the back rooms in the Middle East, in Europe, in Asia, and in USA branch offices, that a plan of attack is being looked at for the Damco opportunities that exist out there. Now, Damco is a fine historic brand, and it's been a great intermediate place in the marketplace for a lot of BCOs that have enjoyed the service. I have one client that has really used them exclusively. I'm sure they're just, looking around now and maybe even listening to a video like this, to my live broadcast, and saying, hey, okay, well, Steve, who do you think would be, a good de facto substitute? So I encourage that as well. When you reach out and you think about where you want to pivot to once you move off of any of these transition type issues. And the Damco, to a lesser extent, the SAP Marine issue now are really in the news. But I think Damco is the linchpin here, right? It's not necessarily huge TEU and FEU volume, but I think transition-wise, it enables NVOs that have not had that kind of business to now entrench themselves into these mid-market type clients, and then use, for example, old dead money from Damco refunds for that client. That client now has, let's say, $50,000, $100,000 from Damco in refunds, and the client says, "Hey, I don't mind using, $10,000 in money to try brand X, or $10,000 to try brand Z, or $10,000 to try brand C." I think it gives the client a really great ability to say, "Okay, well, who's good out there, and let me do some." Some testing, with the old money that I just had refunded to me from Damco. So that's my strategy. That's what I think might fly. I had no idea I'd talk about this for 30 minutes. You guys must be sick of me by now, but I really enjoy impromptu issues. I think this one, went over really, really well. I want to thank Richard Goon for his great comments and hanging in there with me on a Friday night. I don't know how much of our viewership is out there still, but want to wish you all a lovely Labor Day. Stay safe, stay healthy, buckle up, enjoy the beach. And in our case, we'll be taking Alex to boarding school. We love you all out there. This has been Steve Ferreira from CEO of Ocean Audit, broadcasting under the OK Boomer Live TV broadcast network, LinkedIn Live broadcasting, and trying to be authentic, of course. And thank you all so much for your kindness and being a great follower and friends. And we'll see you all on the flip side of Labor Day. So take care, friends, and we love you. Bye.